having a new baby. I don't know what this feeling is, but it feels so good. So good, so good, so good. Oh, I love it. Good rising, Big City. How are you? I miss you. I love you. I hope you guys are well. I hope everything is good. Gucci. That sun yesterday. Oh, when I tell you the AC was on from sun up to sundown, and the temperature still said 83 in the house. I said, listen, something got to give. We ain't in Birmingham. We ain't in Florida. This ain't normal. That's another one there saying this ain't normal. But it is normal. Welcome, summer. We please come. We need you. We need you. We missed you. We accept you. Thank you for coming. There's a lot going on in the news. There's a lot going on in the world. I hope you're being mindful and just taking notes, seeking outside sources outside of your normal, flipping the channels, turning on the radio, listening to something different. Even if it's different from me, that's perfectly fine. But I want you to listen to, others. I want you to listen to, different perspectives. When you're in that same circle, listening to the same people talk about the same thing, you have no other choice but to nod your head and agree. You may disagree on some level, but you need to go ahead and be around complete and like, what the heck are they saying? Like, challenge yourself, baby. Once you stretch out an elastic, you can't make it go back to the little small unstretchable piece that it was before. Stretch that brain, baby, just like we have to stretch these calves and stretch your back. You gotta stretch your brain as well. Currently, we have a call on the line, 617-282-0062. Good rising, my love. How are you?
Good rising, Tina.
Good rising, my love.
I want to tell you people about how to get a free AC.
Oh, baby, please tell me how to get free AC.
ABCD Energy Significant Program. They come to your house. If you have an old AC, they will replace it with a brand new one. If you have an old refrigerator, they will replace it with a brand new one. If you have an old deep freezer, they will replace it with a new one, free of charge. Oh.
Baby, I'm finna go on Craigslist right now, go get me a broken deep freezer, and call your folks.
Yeah, even if it's broken and you have it, they will give you a brand new one. ABCD. God bless you, Tayla.
Bless you, baby. Thank you. I didn't know ABCD had all of those resources. She said from your refrigerator to your AC to your deep freezer, if you have any of these appliances that are old or non-working, ABCD will come in and replace them for free. It is hot 99 out here, so it sounds like a good deal for me. Thank you, Auntie. One of the aunties. The world's obesity crisis. I'm a BBW all day, boo. I don't know, like 16, I think. I'll be trying to squeeze into 12. My bad. The world's obesity crisis. 1/3 of the global population are now deemed overweight or obese. A major study reveals the obesity is rising, and it's a global public health crisis. Researchers said, and experts believe that what is behind this is diabetes and, heart disease. One of the most startling things is that 2.2 billion people, that's 30% of the world, are now overweight. I would like to give my own special hypothesis of this situation. I am the biggest conspiracy theorist on earth, and I would like to completely blame Monsanto. No, in all seriousness, I do blame companies that are genetically modifying food, because when you genetically modify food, one of the things that you're taking away is the nutrients. I don't know if you've ever cut open a strawberry or a tomato or anything that grows really close to the ground. Even a watermelon, for crying out loud, if you cut open these fruits and it's an organic, straight from the farm. You went to some Winchester, Westchester, like you went out into the boondocks, cut open a piece of fruit, and then went to your local market and did the very same thing. Your strawberry has more white in it. A strawberry is not supposed to have no white on the strawberry. But if you not pick a strawberry from the boondocks, it's red. It's blood red. It's juicy red. The red that comes out of the strawberry is red. There is a significant difference between the foods that we purchase from the stores and the foods that are growing on these farms. There is a significant difference. And when you take away those nutrients out of that food, you're starving. Your body is starving for these nutrients. I want to eat. And the truth of the matter is you're not hungry. You're just starving for nutrients. Then, let's take it a step further. Aspartame, a.k.a. sweeteners, a.k.a. sugar. High fructose corn syrup, known to be more addictive than crack cocaine itself. People are out here talking about they don't smoke crack and they don't do this. Baby, if you drinking a Coca-Cola a day, if you drinking a Pepsi a day, my dude, you might as well smoke crack cocaine. I promise you. They gave it to the rats, and the rats was like, I don't want crack cocaine. Give me some of that sugar. High fructose corn syrup, be mindful. It's in all of your children's drinks. Even things that say real ginger ale. Real ginger in your ginger ale. Or something to the effects like 100% juice. Look on the side. If that thing don't say, I'm over here collecting myself. I was with Miss Hot Sauce this past weekend, and she has her podcast, and we could cuss, baby. I thought I was in heaven. I was like, what, we could cuss? So I'm over here catching myself one day of a podcast, and I done forgot where I was for a second, but you have to be mindful. I 100% believe that the world's population is located, those third of the population, those are the countries that have allowed Monsanto to come in. Those are the countries that have allowed the Food and Drug Administration to brainwash them into believing that what we are feeding you, what we are giving you, the food that we allow you to eat, I'll leave that there. I'll be a conspiracy theorist all day long, but it sounds like the truth to me, feel like the truth to me, the thoughts, feelings, and belief for TaylaAndre represent no one but my damn self. Good rising, Polly, you live.
Good rising, Tayla. How are you?
I'm super fantastic. How are you?
Awesome and amazing. You are spot on that Monsanto conspiracy reality. It's not a theory. Theory is when you think something is real when you know it. But there is one food that cannot be genetically modified. No matter how they try, they cannot genetically modify the baby bean. And that bean is a complete nutrient, has every nutrient that the body needs. You can actually live off of baby beans and wheat bread if you were in a survival situation. And we grow, the Nation of Islam grows its own baby beans. And, they have the ABLE program where you can get foods that are not genetically modified, that are not touched by Monsanto. And the inspectors, the food inspectors of the Nation of Islam are the strictest on the planet. You can get orange juice from oranges grown by a Native American family, fresh whiting,
And adjust
salmon,
the mic, however.
Lamb.
Hold on, Taqua. Hold on. Because the last time we spoke, you were supposed to connect me so I could start ordering my food from the ABLE program. But you going to tell everybody else, but you're not going to go ahead and give me the hookup?
No, a brother will be getting in touch with you, Tayla, to get you your order forms. The brother that's in charge of that, that's not me. He will be getting in touch with you to get you your order forms, I promise you.
Thank you, Taqua. So one of the things that I will be doing at the Boston Business Builder is making sure that we have access to this information. And if the nation is unable, because it is a Sunday, and I do respect that they will be at mosque number 11, if no one is able to come out, then I myself will have the paperwork so you guys can learn more information and purchase your food from a farm and not from a big rock business.
Brother, if you're listening, please give her an order for her before she beat me up.
You know I don't beat. Top quad bite. There's a difference.
Oh, I don't want to be bitten either.
Love and appreciate you, Taco. I hope you have an amazing day today. Big City 101.3 FM. Waking up with TaylaAndre. We have our guest in the building. What time is it? Give me a minute, because there's a story. I want to give a huge shout out to Blavidity. I love them. I love everything that they do, the stories that they cover, the information that they give. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you, ladies, because we are so quick to go out to lunch, we are so quick to go out to brunch, we are so quick to spend our dollar and go out with our girls. True or false? All right, that's true. When we go out, are we contributing to gentrification? When you and your girls go out to lunch, when you guys have brunch, when it's time for a girls' night out, where are we going? Where are we spending our dollar? Who are we having dinner with? This is something I want you to think about. And this was actually a question that Blavidity posted, and I think it's a very valid question. It was something that I thought about but didn't think about to the extent in which they wrote about it, and I will go ahead and post it on the Wake Up with TaylaAndre page, not the personal, but the page, so you can read. And I'm kind of feeling where they're coming from, like how much money when you and your 6 girls go out, you and 3 of your girls go out. How much money are you actually spending? Are you going to see Daryl? Are you going to Wings and Tings? Are you? Oh, but Tayla, we don't have any options. Great, I'm so glad you said that. You don't know somebody who wants to open a restaurant? I know some people who want to open a restaurant. They just don't have access to capital. Dun, 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 and that's where LV Randolph comes in. I am so sorry you are over here sweating, because I know
it's hot. It's hot here in Boston. We've officially moved into a heat wave.
Is that what it is?
Yes, today makes it official. We are in a heat wave, so it's hot. And I actually ran all the way from Cambridge over here. So
you ran?
So yeah,
like jog.
I run really fast.
Don't play with me.
So yeah, so it's hot. It's hot, but that's a good thing. It's better than snow.
Oh, hallelujah! And the rain that we had with the clouds and the gloom, it was so depressing.
It's good to see the sun.
Any
day the sun shines is a good day.
Maybe that's the reason why I feel like I won the lottery. It feels good. LV Randolph, who are you? How do we all know you? We know your face. We know that LV and those 3 dots after the Randolph.
Well, okay, so I was actually born here in Boston. I spent the first 6 years of my life in Roxbury. I grew up in a little hamlet just right off of Walnut Street called Westminster Court, and I spent my formative years at the foot of Edmund Barry Gaither at the Museum of the National Center for Afro-American Artists. So
AKA the Big Head Museum?
Yeah, that's correct. So I spent a lot of time there. So I grew up in there. And there came a point in the history, going back in the history of Boston, there came a point where the city started to become inundated with this new drug, and it was called crack cocaine. And the combination of that and busing is what forced my parents, who were transplants from the South, from Louisiana, who came here for education, forced them to have to make some tough choices about their family and so on. So they ended up moving. So that was a choice that they had to make at the time, and I think it was the best choice for them. But there was what came from that was a disconnection from the community. We came back to go to church. My home church was 12 Baptist Church, and that was always a place that is always a place that I call home. But that was sort of the history of sort of where we went. So I ended up in Newton, and I grew up there, and a lot of my friends were in the METCO program. So there was still a connection there. That's right. So it was pretty interesting change, very interesting change, moving from this environment to that environment. And what it took for us to become part of that environment, sort of straddling those two areas. So that's sort of the orientation in terms of where I come from on a daily basis in my thought and my actions, business-wise, this is always and always has been, always will be my community. But the circumstances under which we were sort of forced to leave exist, and that's something that I think that we have to address today. It's something that my generation has to look at. When we talk about gentrification, we talked about some of those things that happen and why people do what they do. I think it's important to note that our communities are very valuable, and what you're seeing here in Boston is not ununique. That's happening everywhere. If you go to Harlem, if you go to you go to South Side of Chicago, you go to other places that are traditionally African American communities, and they're being gentrified. That in and of itself can't be an accident, right? There has to be something. There has to be some dynamic at work that's causing that to happen. So, what I would like to see and what I'm working on now is trying to get our people to move back to our communities.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. LB is also a real estate agent, Real Estate Tip Tuesday, and a broker and a developer and an investor and...
Well, so I do work on some development projects.
Mm-hmm.
I've got projects here in the Boston area and also in other places. I'm part of an investment group now. I don't work on the brokerage side in the progression of my career. So I'm part of an investment group, and we make investments in real estate in various fashion based on our investment objectives. Boston is one of the places that we are looking to start making major investments, both in the communities of color and outside of communities of color.
So you said that you would like, as I would like, to stop gentrification by having us move back. One of the things that I am seeing is that people that make under $70,000 that can't be pre-approved over $280, it is difficult, if damn near non-existent, for them to find property here in Boston, unless it's something that they cannot move into and they have money to invest into.
So it needs to be rent. You mean something
Right,
like a fixer-upper?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
A contractor's deal. It's damn near impossible unless you are part of that lottery and the city says you're the lucky winner, you get to stay here.
Yeah, the city programs notwithstanding, and I think that they are well thought out and they're good programs, but they have limits.
And it's like, hold on, there's a saying about trying to stick a camel through the eye of a needle. That's how I feel like the program is.
It's a rare, and it does have limits, and they're not, if you just look at it from a big picture perspective, these types of programs, or any program that the city could ever possibly do, is never going to be able to meet the demand that we have for housing. That there's no way that they could possibly do that, right? So we have to compensate for that. One of the things that's really important for us, the first thing that we have to do is we have to value our communities. Our communities are systemically devalued in different ways. The first way is devalued in its value. So generally, when you go to communities of color, you'll find that the tax rates, or the assessments of the property tend to be askew to what the actual market value is, right? And what that means is people are paying generally more taxes as opposed to what the market value is. So we're taxed at a higher rate. Insurance rates, other rates, those kinds of things tend to be higher.
Car insurance rates.
Yeah, and it's harder to get mortgages. It's much more difficult, and we've seen with Santander Bank and some others in terms of every we used to joke that every 20 years, every 15 years, there was some big bank scandal, and then there would be a whole bunch of people that would get wiped out in Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan based on some kind of thing that came from a bank. And we can go back to the Bank Boston days, to Bay Bank, to Bank of Boston, Fleet. All of those institutions have had a role in separating people from their assets. Well, that's a business deal, but the bottom line is that they the most notable one, the one that I remember the most, is I believe it was Fleet Bank or Bank of Boston that was literally running around giving mortgages or second mortgages, so home improvement loans. And buried inside of that fine print were these exorbitant interest rates, and they were targeting the most vulnerable people. They were targeting seniors who were homeowners who were in houses. They were aging in their homes, and those homes had fallen into disrepair for whatever reason. They needed major capital improvements, and they gave them the money. But in exchange for that money, essentially, they were taking their homes. They were literally foreclosing on them because they needed to get a new roof. That's real. That happened, and it was not just one or two people. It was hundreds of homeowners. So there are systemic things. There's things outside, but we know what those things. We know what those games are. We know where they come from.
But do we though? Because if we did, would Grandma have lost her house because she needed a new roof? If we knew.
Yeah. So that's where people like you and me come in. The professionals who understand the industries. That's where we come in. It's our job to educate people, to inform people, not just to be business people, but to help educate, our people in our community about how to make the right choices. And sometimes that's going to go against our bottom line, right? Because if you have the opportunity to sell a home, right, you can say to this person, you can sell the home, you can make a commission. But if the best advice for them is to keep that home, right, then we should be able to freely give that advice and then work with that person in some other way, right? So that's going to require for us to be much more innovative in terms of how we think and how we approach our community. And not everybody's going to get that, but when I talk to my clients, my business development clients, and I talk to them about what's going to be done in their business. If the saying that I have is, if you don't do it, it's not going to get done, because you're the founder, you're the CEO. If you don't do this, it's not going to get done. You can't look to anybody else. You're the person that's going to get this done. So if we're going to have change, Taylor, it's going to be us. If it's not us, then in 20 years, in 30 years, somebody else will be sitting in these same seats and they'll be having the same conversation, just like 20 years ago and 30 years ago. There were people sitting in these same seats having the same conversation. Maybe not in the same medium, but they were having the same conversation. this is the stuff that people like Diane Wilkerson and Chuck
Auntie,
Turner,
Uncle,
you know, and all of those people.
I mean, all of these people that have these horrible rap sheets because they're criminals, quote unquote criminals.
That's those are systemic issues, right? Those are systemic issues. There's a lot more attention paid to our behavior and what we do than to some others, and you know, we're relatively, in my opinion, less corrupt. We're less corrupt than some of the things that you might see in other communities. I'm just going to leave it there.
You don't have to leave it there, because I'll pick it up. So we could be honest. They went ahead and shined a flashlight and said, "Oh, we find you guilty," but they forgot that what happened in the dark always come to light. So all of the darkness that they've been all their dealings in the darkness, I pray to sweet baby Jesus, Buddha, Allah, Krishna, the sacred cows, rags of India. I know my God is so big, so strong, so mighty, somebody gonna come crashing and falling down. And Auntie Diane and Uncle Chuck gonna still be here working, fighting, and doing what they can for their people.
And one of the things that I understand about Boston and the political system is that there was a time when we didn't have anything. We didn't have an audience. We didn't have inroads into city government. And over there, I would say the last 30 years, 40 years, possibly 50 years, but 30 years, at least 30 years, we have made significant inroads, and we've become much more politically aware. However,
we got work to do.
We still have work to do. We can't rely 100% on that part of the process. You can't bake a cake without the ingredients to bake a cake, right? And you need flour, and you need eggs, and you need oil, and you need, right? So you can't bake a cake with just flour. You gotta bake a cake. You gotta have eggs. So you have to use there's many different ways that you can use. And one of the things that I think as a business person and who cares about the community, one of the things that I think that as a business person, and I take responsibility for this, we have failed, is paying attention to that part where how the business community, not just for show, not just showing up and networking and passing out business cards and having an agenda. I'm talking about how we have failed to actually take care of our community. It's what I find, and this criticism, if people think this is undue, please feel free to let me know.
617-282-0062.
But we have paid a lot of attention to having political power and relying on the political system, the city and government, to provide resources. But we ourselves have the ability to garner those resources. We have the brain power. We actually have the access to capital. There are black banks out there, right? There are institutions. The gentlemen that I work with are all black and Latino, all of them. And they have access to millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of funding that we're positioning in communities of color, black and brown communities, not just here in Boston, but elsewhere.
No exclusive yet, but we'll roll that out soon.
We're going to roll that out soon, and it will happen here. The announcement will happen.
Oh yeah.
So as a business person, I think that we have a tendency to put an emphasis in our community on people who have the credentials and on paper are going to be most likely to get a job, right? They've gone to college, they have a master's degree, they have a PhD, they have all these letters behind their name, and they're most likely to be able to get a job. What we have not put emphasis on is those people who are most likely to create and provide those jobs.
You guys sound like a Boston business builder draft. LV, you told me a story that I think about at least once a day, sometimes more often, and it happens every time I pass by a vacant lot with a fence around it and grass overgrown.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do me a favor and share that story with the listeners?
So what's interesting in our communities, if you look a few years ago, I and my partners were looking at developing. I drove around. I took some time, a few months actually, and I went from one side of our community to the other, and I drove down all the streets, and I looked, and I started to count all the vacant lots. And the blighted, what we would call blighted, the blight in the community. And I was looking at the fact that there was not enough affordable housing. There's not enough housing in general.
Mm-hmm.
We need, the city of Boston needs 35,000 new units. I think it's new units every year. That's probably a low number now because the demand has increased. But we need that many new units every year just to keep up with the regular demand in our community in terms of providing affordable housing. And I'm not talking about free housing. I'm talking about something that's affordable for somebody who has a regular job to be able to purchase or to rent. And we wanted to address that. And we looked around, and we saw we had all of the things that we needed to be able to do it. We had access to capital, and we had the available land. We, through our efforts, were unable to get the city to even sell us that land. The land was locked up in such a political quagmire that it was literally impossible for us to be able to do this. And it stymied the efforts. And because we're business people, we had to look elsewhere. We have to make money. We got to eat, right? So we had to look elsewhere. In that process, what I studied and I looked at was the history of how things got that way. Now, when you go to the other traditional communities, when I say traditional, there's those are along sort of ethnic lines. When you go to the North End, or the Italian Quarter, and you go to the West End, which is no more. That entire community was sort of wiped out. Mm-hmm. You go to South Boston, and you go to other parts, of the city. Even Brookline, right? You don't see those that underutilized asset, these vacant lots. You don't see it. If there's something that's vacant, somebody comes in, they build something, they house people for that community. Usually in Boston, it's somebody from that community that does the work and benefits from that work. What I started to see was that there was a trend. And if you look back and you look at the amount of systemic issues that we've had, you look at the crack era and drugs and sort of the things that drugs do in communities when it comes to sort of the real estate assets. There was a trend. So what I saw was that there were systemic financial disparities where people weren't able to get employment, or they were underemployed. Even though they were homeowners, they weren't able to maintain their homes. They would age out because we have this sort of value system that doesn't value our own community. Their children would sort of grow up, and this was seen as a place to move away from. They would leave, the house would sit there, and then be taken by some kind of a tax lien. Nothing would be done, so it would just sit there and slowly fall apart in that space, but you couldn't buy it because, now it's a city property. You have to sort of get into that political quagmire, as I mentioned. What also was happening, and this happened to cause a lot, were people who would become addicted to drugs. When we were going through our crisis, right? Not as opposed to the crisis that's hitting other communities when we were going through our crisis.
Like the one that you might see right now on Mass Ave, and I feel like they came out of nowhere. There's like hundreds of them now just sitting on Mass Ave on the way to the freeway.
Yeah. Well, so what happens is somebody would become addicted to drugs, and they would sort of drop out of life and be get into the pursuit of that, as they say, chasing the dragon. And their house, in order for them to maintain their addiction, it would sort of, form natural conglomerations with other people who are doing the drugs. Drug dealers would also be involved. And so you have a house where there was a normal working class, law-abiding person who happened to, stumble upon this drug. And now their house turns into what we would call a crack house. Okay. And then over time, we know what happens when you do crack and you do heroin and you do other things. Eventually, there's no disputing.
You tap out.
That's it. You're done, right? Eventually, either the system takes you out or you die. Okay. So that person dies. The house sits there. It's used as an abandoned property. I can remember people like Bruce Wall, who I grew up in, who was a major influence in my life in terms of being a mentor at 12th Baptist Church as a youth minister. I can remember Bruce Wall going to the city and bringing people and calling attention to the fact that we had these abandoned places, and these used to be people's homes. It wasn't. It's not like it was just abandoned. They built it to be abandoned. Somebody lived there at some point. Somebody owned it at some point. It had value at some point. But they had turned into shooting galleries. They had turned into crack houses. They turned into places where people who sold drugs would set up shop, and things would happen. They would burn. There would there'd be some other things. It just would be dangerous. It'd be a dangerous place. So there was a call to board those places up, secure them, and the city to provide the resources to do that. And then, there was the I don't know if you remember the Drop a Dime campaign. It was this idea that we could anonymously work with the city and the police to eliminate some of the nefarious activity
of the time.
Okay. So all of those things were happening. Those houses, when they were boarded up, they didn't go anywhere. And you understand what happens to property when you cannot establish ownership. You cannot establish ownership. It goes back to the city, basically reverts back to the city. So you have a lot of those properties sitting around.
And another one.
And they become hazardous. They become hazardous to the neighbors, to people on either side. They become hazardous. People start to live in them. People get hurt. There's other things that can happen. Or they just fall down. So what happens then is that the city comes in and just tears it down. Just bring it in and demolish it.
So the fence that goes up.
So what you're left with is this basically a lot. Now, over the years, weeds and things will start to grow in that lot year over year over year over year. And I remember there was a campaign to beautify those because the city wouldn't sell them, or the people in the community didn't think they could buy them. So it was this clean it or lean it. There was all these other things. And whenever you see one of these vacant lots that has a white picket fence that goes around it, that was the attempt. That was the
beautification.
The beautification. Put that white picket fence around it, and it would look nicer. The community, some of those lots, the community tried to repurpose. They turned them into gardens or space where people could entertain and neighborhood space, those kinds of things. But essentially, most of those lots were just vacant lots. Now, if you fast forward to today, whenever you see a house and then a lot, and then looking at that lot, there might be a retaining wall there and a set of stairs that comes down to the sidewalk, but there's no house, or there's a railing that goes, a old metal railing. You see that lot? There used to be a house. There was a structure there. Somebody owned that. There were families there, right? There were people who grew up there. So when you see house, lot, house, building, big lot, house, building, those lots, all of the things, the dynamics that went to create those lots are part of that systemic pressure from outside. And it's a conglomeration of things that happen to our demise. And so what happens is those real estate assets are not being utilized by somebody. There's a whole bunch of tradespeople who could be maintaining that property who are not being employed. So all the brothers and sisters out there who are tradespeople, that's work that they're not getting. Those are roofs that they're not able to fix, and railings and stairways and so on. Those are investments. People like me that we're not able to make. It's just it's sort of gone, right? So when you look and you see that, that's why all of those things are there. Sort of a conglomeration, and it's not. I hate to say this, but it's not an accident. None of these things were things that happened by accident. There were specific and deliberate things that were done, decisions that were made that affected that.
But LV, that was so long ago. Why would they let vacant? And I swear I pass by dozens of them every day. Why would they just let these dozens of lots where people could be living, where people could be maintaining, making money? 20, 30 years is a long time. Why would they just, someone's paying the taxes on it, right?
No, because the city owns them. That means that so there was a building there was taxes. They didn't pay the taxes, so the city said, well, we're going to lien it, we're going to take it from you. There was no established owner. Over the years, people died and moved on. There was, things weren't claimed. And now the city owns them.
So when you and your investors attempted, many moons ago, attempted to purchase these properties, these lots,
yep.
What exactly happened?
Well, we got sucked up into a political quagmire, and a lot of it is our own doing in terms of allowing our community resources and our assets to be controlled by the city.
Is that blaming the victim?
It's not blaming the victim because, we didn't have to do it that way. They're smart enough, I'll put it this way. They're smart enough guys, and we all know who they are, in our community that we look to as leaders who know how this works. And we, as a community, again, we've been focused on getting a job, and having something more secure and providing for our family, as opposed to looking within our community and providing those jobs. You just talked about people who might want to own a restaurant. Yeah, there's plenty of places where restaurants can go up. There's opportunities for us to be able to have options, but one, we're not socialized to look for those options, and two, I think that again, and I'm going to take responsibility for this as a business person, I think that the business community has failed to push in that direction. We've been sort of pushing in another direction. I'm not saying we have done nothing, but we failed to push in that direction. We should have, in this community, I would say, at least 8 or 9 more millionaires than we do.
Do we have millionaires?
We have a few. But if you look at other communities, it's those millionaires who are in business, who are creating these opportunities. It's those guys and gals who are the ones that drive innovation. They drive opportunity. They drive those things. There was a time, if you look at any restaurant where you have 10 tables and service. There's a cook, right, or cooks. There's somebody who has to wait on those tables, bring the food from the kitchen out to the table. There's somebody who's operating in the front of the house, right, who's greeting the people when they come in and sitting them down and so on and so forth, right? There's the restaurant owner, and if you look at just how many jobs that one establishment creates for people inside of their own community, that business is now paying taxes. It's part of the economy. So now all the things that business needs, that restaurant needs food, it needs equipment, it needs all of those things. If you look at all of the jobs that one establishment creates, we could solve a lot of problems in terms of being able to provide solid incomes for people, being able to provide opportunities to learn, right? Because that restaurant can also teach people, this is how you can become a waitress or a waiter. This is how you cook. This is how you run a business, right? So that one institution has the ability to create so much more opportunity, but I think that we just haven't been focused on it. Now, if we go back to those vacant lots, right? Now the city is brokering those lots. When you look around the community, the majority of the new opportunity to create new wealth in real estate is in our community. Yet, if you look, how many real estate developers, how many real estate agents and brokers, how many of us are truly participating in the sale and the redevelopment of those lots? And I'm not saying that there's not opportunity or there's not space for us to have done that or do it, right? But what I am saying is that if you look at that in proportion to others in other communities, if I went to Brookline, it'd be very difficult for me to do this, get a project done, right? Because
or somebody might tell you that people like you don't do projects.
And you know what? We've all heard that. We've all had somebody come say in our face, hey, listen, this is not where you should be. This is But in our own community, if you look at in proportion, how many of us are actually participating in the generation of that new wealth? And I hate to say it, but some of that has to do with the political system and how it works. Because it's not within our control. It's not. Are there opportunities for us to do it? Yes, there are. However, if we had control of that system, then there would be more opportunities and significant enough opportunities so that we would be able to not only generate wealth, but that wealth can generate other opportunities. It can generate political power. It can generate sort of snowballs.
So I have a question. As a resident, as well as an agent, that still has breast milk fresh behind my ears, the Black Removal Authority, which, currently changed their name because, shots fired, and now we have to change our name so nobody knows who we are. The BRA, which is now like BDPSM.
Yeah, they've completely rebranded,
Completely. Yeah. They're still the same evil. Where did that even, who said they were necessary? And it's like quasi-governmental, we're independent, but the government tells us what to do, but we do our own thing at the same time.
Historically, I'm not exactly certain when the BRA was established. There's that date I don't know. I do know that Mayor Menino, who was in office for some time, I think it was like 16,
like 80 years.
So, in any case, he was very, very efficient in using the BRA as a way to control the land resources in the city, and not just control the land resources, but control access to those land resources. One of the things that I notice, and historically, there's a concept in business of supply and demand. If you artificially limit the supply of something, over time the demand goes
so
up.
does the price.
Right? When you look up into the sky towards Boston, and you see all those cranes and all those new buildings, and those new buildings are going up, and the rent, or even in some cases the cost to purchase those new units that are being built are for people at or above 200 to 300% of the median income. There's a reason for that. That's not by accident. And one of the things that I can say cumulatively that have happened with the BRA is by artificially limiting access to real estate, the land resources, that demand under the administration went up significantly. And because that demand went up significantly, it created, in some cases, what we would see as a good thing, like the entire Seaport district now is being built up, and only that kind of pent up demand could have created that.
You can't even see the ocean anymore. All you see is buildings.
Exactly, and there was nothing there before. It was really just it was a place you went to get robbed, right? So now you see that happening. So what has happened is that by artificially limiting access to those resources over decades, it has created a pent-up demand for housing. The problem, however, with that, and this is what I would say is again, pointing the finger and trying to say it's this one thing. No, it's a conglomeration of things that have come together. We just always happen to be on the wrong end of it. The conglomeration of that is that you can't afford to live. All of the housing that's being created is not being created for us or for people, regular working people. It's just not.
I was going to ask you a question along those lines, like how can a regular working person, because you mentioned earlier as far as gentrification, we need to buy and stay in our community. How does a regular person buy and stay in our community when the price of the rent of a 1-bedroom or even the rent of a 3-bedroom at $2,500 first, last, security, and fee is the down payment for a house?
Sure. Well, part of this is going to go back to good financial planning, right? There's no way for us to get around that. So you have to be thinking, you have to be in that mode of buying a home is important, or owning a home is important, right? Or owning a piece of your community as an investment is important to do. There's a ton of things that we can get into in terms of how education, policy, and other things that affect that, right? It affects how much people earn, and then it affects how much people can save, and so on. But a good, solid financial, just having your finances together and having a good savings plan is going to help with that. And we need our financial professionals, and our banking professionals, and other people
LB,
to
I don't care
really
how much coffee I don't drink. I don't care how much weed I don't smoke. Mind you, I'm speaking from, what other people's vices. No matter how much alcohol I don't drink, no matter how many times I don't go out,
sure.
No matter, if I make $40,000, I can afford what $40,000 is going to purchase.
Sure,
me.
Absolutely. Now, but if you make $40,000, but you spend $35,000 and you borrow another $15,000 over the course of a year, you're never ever going to ever be in a position to buy anything, right? Unless you buy it on credit. But you can't get a house on that kind of credit. You just can't, right? So you have to be able to organize yourself financially in a way that's sound. Okay. One of the things that spurns gentrification is Black people selling their property. Black and brown people selling their property to people who are not Black and brown. Now, we're going to wait because fair housing law.
You're not an agent. Are you still an agent?
I'm not.
So you can say whatever you want as a non-active agent.
So the bottom line is, and I'm going to put it this way: how come there is not a significant presence of Black and brown people that own property in South Boston or the North End?
Those were my shots fired.
Because when you go over there, and look, I'm not going to blame. I'm not blaming. I'm not going to say that's unfair. That's how they've organized their communities, and they have a structure, right? And there's consequences There's consequences. If I went over there, I don't care how good of friends I was with the guy who's over there, and he says, I'm going to sell you the property. There's consequences, political and social consequences for that guy and his family.
His home to you
sells
as a
his
black
house
man.
to me. But when you come over here, and a lot of it again, this has to do with systemic pressure, because we need the capital more. There's no other. When you come to somebody who's made $40,000, $45,000 their entire life, and they're under pressure because the cost of everything else is going up, and so on and so forth, and they've got this asset that they're sitting on, and somebody offers them more money than they've ever seen in cash, that's a pretty compelling argument, right? But it's not to say that person shouldn't sell the property. It's just that we need to be able to have a way to structure our communities so that we can sell property and exchange property and real estate assets in our community amongst each other, right? So the blame, as a professional business person, real estate professional, I'm going to take responsibility for that. I wasn't there to buy it, or I didn't create an apparatus, or I wasn't innovative enough, or I wasn't paying attention, and I wasn't there to buy that property when that person was willing to sell.
Really quick question, because we do have a call on the line. When you look at what's taking place now, do you feel a little bit of guilt from your younger years and not, like, you just took on that responsibility? I wasn't there to buy it, but, like, in all seriousness, the changes that are happening in Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, is there any guilt that you, and I say that to say, like, are there others that may have been in your shoes or your position at one time that are out here that are like, damn, like, I effed up. I could have helped my community. I could have done something.
I do believe that. I believe that there's enough guilt to go around. So there's the guilt part, and to answer your question directly, yes, I do feel responsibility, right? Because once I got to a point where I could financially do something, and where I had the knowledge on how, right, how to get access to capital, or get the grant, or get the whatever it might be. Once I know, then it is now my responsibility. And if I do nothing from then, I'm guilty. Right? So I can't be guilty for what happened in the past. I can feel concern, and I can take responsibility for that. And I do. But it's what happens from here going forward that's now my responsibility. I can live anywhere I want. I don't have to. I can live in any state I want, in any community I want. I can go wherever I want. I'm here in Boston because I'm of this place, because I care about this place. And addressing these issues is going to take more than just us controlling a few seats, in the city council or in the state legislature, right? It's going to take more than us. It's going to take more than us voting beyond 12% of our total population, right? It's going to take more, and I think that the business community needs to step up. And again, I'm not saying that there's nothing being done, but what I am saying is that the approach has to be more than just lip service, handing out business cards, having business, kind of events, which are good, okay. But we need to be able to go out and stick our hands in the dirt, get down in the mud and the muck, and fight with our finances, with our brain power, and our capital.
Who are you giving your power to? Who are you reaching in your wallet and saying, here is my power? Good rising, Miss G. How are you, my love?
Good rising. I just called to ask a desperate question. I wanted to ask a question. I'm an elder, and I wanted to ask the question that why the sudden interest in Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan? because maybe 40 years ago, they wasn't so interested. All of a sudden, I already know the answer, but all of a sudden, Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan, etc., are prime property. While they watched the infrastructure deteriorate, they did nothing about it, and all of a sudden, it becomes prime property. So, why the sudden interest?
Great question, Miss G. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you.
So that's a very good question. The sudden interest is, again, this is not something ununique to Boston. We have going all over the country. If you go to Harlem, if you go to Oakland, if you go to certain parts of New Orleans, certain parts of Atlanta, certain parts of Washington, D.C. I mean, that's a really good example of Washington, D.C. Certain parts of Chicago. All those places where we exist, there is the same dynamic happening. So that the interest hasn't been sudden. And I'm going to use a more historical example. And Tayla, you and I have talked about this. The cycle, there is a predictable cycle for the movement of African Americans in this country. Black people have been in Boston since the beginning of Boston. Okay, when the first white settlers moved into Texas, they brought black people with them. The black people were the ones who were carrying everything, right, and doing all the work. Okay, so we've been here since the beginning. Why isn't there a black community that has been in existence?
They bombed it
Since the beginning. Where is that community? And we can look to Beacon Hill. Beacon Hill was the black community. It was an undesirable place to live. There was this nasty bog back there, and it's where all the trash went, and so on and so forth. And why you go to Beacon Hill and you don't even see people. Black people carrying trash. I mean, it's we're just not there anymore. Okay,
and that's why kids from the streets, BET was downtown like, yo, have you seen this endangered species? And it was a drawing of a black man.
So that cycle is a predictable cycle that the greater establishment understands, and the same systemic pressures that have been placed upon our communities have been going on for quite some time. So it's the value in our communities has always been there. It's always been there. There was a time when the inner city was a dirty word. And it was when people would use it. It was used to describe areas that were blighted and poverty-stricken and so on and so forth. But right now, if you go to the inner city, you go to Chinatown. There's big high-rise buildings and fewer Chinese people. So to answer your question, the sudden interest is one, because it's always been valuable, and two, because as I mentioned, the opportunities for new wealth creation in real estate are in our communities. They're not in those communities that have been traditionally built and overbuilt. You're not going to get a new opportunity to create real estate wealth in the North End. There are new opportunities in South Boston. But I don't know anybody who looks like me who's doing business in either of those areas.
So we're coming to the top of the hour, LV, and I have two questions. Can we have you back?
Absolutely.
Knowledge.
Absolutely. Tayla, girl.
So my first question is, what steps do we as a community, or what steps as a community can we take in order to maintain and sustain ourselves where we currently are or where we would like to be?
Okay, so I'll answer that question. So the steps that we can take are prepare yourself financially. you have to do that first. It's a must. It's painful. It's not something that we're really good at. That's another systemic pressure from the outside that has sort of denied us that sort of understanding culturally of financial education and approach to that. And there's a lot of pain within us associated with it. So you have to prepare yourself financially. You need to buy property. If you own property now and you have children, talk to your children. Give it to them and work with them on making that real estate asset part of your generational wealth strategy for your family. If you don't have children and they're not interested in being there, do what you can. Work with people like Tayla. Work with other African American, Black, and Latino real estate agents and brokers who are going to help you find people to purchase that property and do the best you can to sell that property. Even if you don't go through a broker, sell that property to somebody who looks like you or who's from this community, right?
The thoughts, beliefs, and feelings of Ellery Randolph III are the thoughts, feelings, and beliefs of no one but his answer. I like my license.
Okay, so there's things to consider when working with somebody with a license, but the bottom line is that that's one of the things that you have to do. Sell the property if you're going to sell it. Don't sell it, but if you're going to sell it to somebody who looks like you, and or renovate it. Bring it up to its highest and best use. That's one of the things that my company and my partners help to do. Bring it up to its highest and best use, and then rent it to people who look like you. And that way you're developing that asset into income. So that's what I would say. Is the first step. As far as the business community is concerned, as far as the bottom line is that every single person of color in this city, or Greater Boston in general, who makes more than $150,000 a year should be buying property now in our communities, period. They should be preparing themselves for, most of them probably already are, they should be doing that. We should be looking to retain as many Black and brown people that are coming out of the richness of our educational institutions, higher education here, keeping them here, convincing them to buy property and establish themselves in communities of color. Sadly, I have to say that a lot of the roots of gentrification are strong, and there are certain parts of our community that we're simply going to have to forget about in terms of us being there, at least for another generation. But then what we should be doing is looking to other communities and other places where we can buy together and invest together, where we'll then be able to acquire political power.
So that was something that I recently posted online. Like, there was a gentleman who was talking about let them have this BS. I believe he was in, I don't know where he was, but he was just like, they want it, give it to them. Find somewhere else where we can build a Tulsa, where we can build, I forgot the name of the neighborhood in California where blacks have their own monies, their own economy.
Sure. Yeah, that was Oklahoma. Did you talk about Black Wall Street?
No. Black Wall Street was in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But there was also a community in Northern California where it was black, all black, everything, and they only took their money. It was like their actual dollar. They created their dollar, and that's how
I
they.
see. Yeah, that's clever. So
in Massachusetts, what would be a community that maybe isn't desolate, but could use, some of us, and we could gain political power, have some beautiful land, and not, be hit by smog.
Well, to be quite frank, that dynamic that we have in terms of understanding the movements and patterns of Black people and that predictable thing, it's going to be hard for us to do that in a way that we're not going to be influenced by other powers. And that's simply because they already know where we're going to go.
Where we going,
and they're
Where we going, LV?
They're plotting and planning it. They're getting it ready for us.
It sure is called Brockton.
So Brockton would be a place.
Yeah.
Now that's not to say that, and this requires us to sort of come out of our thinking a little bit, right, and our attachment, and look towards creating a new future, almost like pioneers. But Brockton is a place. New Bedford is a place. I've taken several real estate tours in the past month to communities like Springfield and Worcester. These are communities that it's affordable to be able to move there. They're relatively, from the perspective of growing up next to a major city, Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, they're going to be relatively isolated, but there's no reason why we couldn't have everything that we should have here in those places. So there are other opportunities, and again, the business community, the real estate professional community, we have the ability to affect that in a way that's going to actually be a positive, as opposed to a negative or just a few people making a bunch of money.
The truth of the matter, LV, is we could move to Wisconsin. We could move to Alaska. We could move anywhere, Detroit, build anything.
Flint, Michigan, Detroit.
And they still would want it. They still would want it just because we have it. We could move to an island in the middle of nowhere with palm trees and mangoes, and they would want that too.
I agree with you. One good example I'll give about that, some brothers and sisters over at Harvard University decided they were going to have a black commencement.
Yes.
They said, we need to do this. We're going to have a black commencement. And I will not. I just thought it was very funny. But I was looking at some of the pictures that some folks posted of the commencement exercises. And, there was a whole bunch of white folks there with dashikis and so on. And I just thought it was funny. What was funny about it was that, to a certain extent, we have to accept the fact that we are integrated into this society, right? We are part of it. We're just as equal part of it as anybody else. However, they love us. And they're not going to, they may do dastardly things and set up systems that put us behind, but they just can't let us go. They want to stay, they need to be around us. There's something we do, something we have that they just need to.
Oh, it's that melanin, that $365 an ounce, a gram melanin. That's what it is, popping, popping. Oh, Lord. So we are all the way at the top of the hour. No, we're not. We still have. Oh, no. That's wrong. We are at the top of the hour. LV, how do we find you? How can we connect with you? Social media? How do I call you directly?
So the best way to get in contact with me, my company right now we're really focused on pushing an investment agenda. I'm definitely going to be at the Business Builders.
Woo!
And I have to take my hat off to Miss Tayla. She's blazing a trail in terms of making value in the community and keeping the conversation going, but also backing that up with action. So I will be there. My website right now is being completely revamped. So we're about to roll out a big marketing initiative and some big changes here. You can find me at LV Randolph at Cambridge, like the city, Argilite, and I'll spell that ARGILLITE. So that's LV Randolph at CambridgeArgilite.com. That's my email address. You can send me any messages, or if you would like to just speak to me or talk about some of the things that we do, I'd be happy to. And look for me at the Business Builders Conference that's coming up.
And for those who don't know, Boston Business Builder is June 25th from 12 p.m. until 6 p.m. LV Randolph will be there, and all of his knowledge and all of his expertise, as well as Monica Koss, Noah B. Jones, Anna Maven. Her name is Anna Foster. I don't know why I keep calling her Anna Maven. You know why. Maven's World. She is. She's absolutely amazing. Tracy Syfax. I know a lot of people don't know the name Tracy Syfax. Who is he? Why do I want to come out and see him? If you know anyone with a blemished past, anyone with a quarry, anyone who is continuously denied housing, continuously denied a job, continuously denied for mistakes or whatever they did in their past, Tracy Syfax, your past can't be any worse than Tracy's. He did his time. He was incarcerated. He came out and he used his knowledge and street wisdom and put it into business. And he is currently a multimillionaire teaching others how to do the exact same thing. Maybe you don't have to beg nobody for a job when you can create one yourself. Professor Devin Robinson, Atlanta, Georgia, opened 20% of the Black-owned beauty supply stores. And I know that 20% doesn't seem like a lot, but when we have Koreans opening beauty supply stores on every quarter, billions of dollars a year that we spend.
They actually control the entire black hair care industry.
Say it again.
The Korean community, through their industriousness. Now, I'm not going to blame them for what they're doing. They're making their mark here in the United States, and there was an opening for them. We gave them that opening. They didn't take anything from us. We gave it to them. Okay? They control the entire black hair care industry, from manufacturing of the product,
synthetic hair,
all the way through. And the only thing that they don't control is this area that this brother is trying to work on is that end-to-end relationship between the beautician and the client. Mm-hmm. And if both of those hands are black, then that's something they don't control. That is $1 billion industry. There's been documentaries about it, but the bottom line is that this brother's onto something. The country of India launched its revolution on taking back two vital industries. One was they started making their own clothes, and two, they started making their own salt. That's how they launched. That's how they became free of their colonial power. So if you talk about being able to wrest control and to have self-determination and build business and financial resources and institutional wealth, black women, start with the top of your head, the crown of your head. Right there.
Don't touch my hand. Y'all sing Solange all day talking about don't touch my hand and let Koreans give you everything that you put in your hair. Message. With that being said, again, Sunday, June 25th, 2017, Boston Business Builder. I am really excited. Thank you, LV, for coming in today. Do not forget, I am a Second Amendment sister, maybe not on paper, but definitely in my heart. I need you to go out and get your firearm, 617-293-1011. Call Firearm Fred and arm thyself, 617-293-1011. He will also be at the Boston Business Builder along with Faith Naturals, 66A South Street. I am so excited, cannot wait for her. Hair, nails, oil, skin, name it, she has it. Shampoo, conditioner, pum-pum wash, pum-pum spray, pum-pum oil, yoni steams, yoni eggs, everything that you need, she has it. And Father's Day is around the corner, and she has Father's Day gifts, too. There's nothing exempt from what Faith has. Don't forget, Prestige Cuisine has some of the best food as far as when you were talking about, like, employing people and when he goes to the market to pick up food and like all of that exchange of money and how much is being created there. It's amazing. Shout out to Johnson. He too will be selling food at the Boston Business Builder. I am TaylaAndre, LV Randolph. One more time, your social media.
You can catch me at Facebook, LV Randolph III. And again, LV Randolph at CambridgeArgilite.com is my email address. us.
Spell argillite. What is that?
Argillite actually is the stone that is the underpinning of Cambridge. So there's two major stone bedrock, if you will, that underpin the city of Boston and Cambridge. The first is something called Roxbury conglomerate, or what we call pudding stone.
Really?
And the second is Cambridge argillite. They're both basically derivatives of the same process.
And it's just rock.
It's the rock that that everything here is built on.
That was smart, LV. Cambridge argillite.
Yep. So Cambridge argillite, Cambridge like the city of Cambridge, ARGILLITE.
Cambridge argillite. Now, and you also learned a new word that you didn't know before. I love you. I appreciate you. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and we'll be back tomorrow. Mwah.
Sus won the feature presentation. Listen, make sure you wake up with TaylaAndre Monday through Friday, 5 to 7 a.m. on Big City 101.
But wait before you say anything, because we are Facebook Live.
Politics.